You are in the VIP section of the Black Women in Radio podcast, a decade of the new woman. I'm your host, Felicia Love, along with our special guest, Frankie Darcell.
And along the way, because of licensing, she said, it's time for you to write your own thing. I was like, I don't know about doing that. She said, why not? So I went to South Africa about 2 years ago. It was a 24-hour flight, and I started writing. So from the time I put the pen to the paper, to the night we got it on stage, November 22nd, 2019, it took 10 years. It was a blessing. It was an amazing production. So I like being behind the scenes, and people are like, aren't you going to star in one of your plays? I was like, absolutely not. So I love birthing these babies and seeing them on stage and working with incredible actors. I hate to say local actors. They're just really local actors in numbers of cities that haven't gotten their breaks, but amazing people. And here I am, and I'm actually working right now to try and get the show on the road. I must say it's a really good show.
And that's why I invited you here to this empowerment pajama party. So let's have fun, all right?
Or it may end up looking more like Love and Hip Hop.
Lord have mercy. It's going to be a long night tonight. Well, the party can officially get started because I have arrived.
I started by just doing a couple of plays. I'm doing 12 Angry Men. I did God's Trombones, and she just wanted to encourage me. She said, why are you writing why are you going to keep producing other folks' stuff? She was like, you got a great sense of humor. And she said, why don't you write your own? So I thought about it. And then back in 2018, I went to South Africa. It was a 24-hour flight. So I said, let me just start writing. So I started writing, and it just wasn't connecting. And then I thought about, some of the stuff I do on the air. I've done Talk of the Town for more than 20 years, which are topics that address issues primarily concerning women. And I wrote a book in 2004 called Conversations for Sisters Only. I'm like, write what you know. And bam, it took me really from paper to stage, November 22nd. It was a 10-year thought process in terms of doing productions, but it was about 2.5 years in terms of writing it, producing it, and getting it on the stage. So I wrote what I know, and that's talking about women and our stuff.
Yes.
So it was amazing, and I just thank God that was one major thing I wanted to get off my bucket list, and I did that. So I'm excited.
Goodness, Frankie.
Really excited.
And like I said off camera, people don't realize how much creativity there is within us. And you mentioned just a little while ago that you were, very frequenting the theater with your daughter, mm-hmm. and it spiraled from there. And it's like, write what you know, write what's inside of you.
And I didn't want to do something, I didn't want to do somebody else's something. And when I started writing, I did that. But I believe right now, I think I'm from that generation where if you went to medical school, you had to be a doctor. If you went to get a degree in radio, you had to do radio, whatever it is. But now we live in a time where you can do all those things of your heart's desire. And I want, when the time comes for people to look over and say, Frankie did her thing. Everything she wanted to do, she did. I wanted to write books because I do love to write and I love to read. I love to write and I love to read, and I put those things together. So I've authored 2 books. I've done an audio book on CD for a girlfriend of mine that was losing her sight. And so now that I got more leaves on the ground than on the tree, I said, I want to make sure that everything that is in my heart's desire that I get an opportunity to do. So my second love to radio professionally has really developed into theater. So I'm really excited about that. I'm excited about working with some young dynamic women who are amazing. I've met some brothers who are just the bomb, and it's turned into something very credible. So, I just thank God for that.
You know what? You touched upon so many juicy nuggets. I don't know which way to go first. I want to know how you went about finding the people, casting. I want to know that part. Yeah. And I also want to make sure that we talk about the 2 books. So tell me about the casting. Since this is your first time, your first baby, how did you approach that? I know you had to have been scared out of your pants.
Yeah. The blessing right? The blessing of being in radio. And because I knew what it was I wanted to do, I started in Detroit and in Philadelphia, just immersing myself in the theater community. I started going to some, some very great local theater productions, and then some not so very great, but in some of the not so very great, I found some wonderful talent. And so I just started networking, and I did a lot of research. This isn't something I woke up one day and said I'm gonna do. I did all the necessary research. And then, I networked with 2 or 3 people in both cities and said, I want you to work with me on my team. And I want to get the word out there. So through people I met in the theater community, they connected to people in their theater community. And then what I really pride myself on is that when I started posting that I was doing auditions, I said, listen, no experience needed, because I can tell you, I've met some people who've never been on the stage before, who've wanted to be on the stage. And I cast those individuals because they were passionate about wanting to do work. And I will tell my cast all the time, and I tell people when I cast. And now, when I used to have 15 people want to audition, now I've got 50 and 60 people showing up. And I would rather work with someone who's not experienced, but can listen and ready to learn and committed, than to work with somebody that brings a lot of talent to the stage. So that's how I found my talent. Now I've got people sending me emails saying, I want to, work with you. I want to be a part of your production. I want to be a part of your team. And I have a team of 6 people that work with me. We do the same thing, the same way all the time. And my girlfriend, who's in Detroit, flies into Philadelphia for my, rehearsals and productions. And we just run like a well-oiled train at this point. So that's how I started casting. And the blessing is that now people are sending me their portfolios saying, the next time that you do an audition, would you let me know? Because we're trying, again, I don't want to say local, but it's just, we're rising. And somebody said to me recently, when I said, we're like community theater, they said, no. And as a matter of fact, it was my supervisor, Derek Corbett. He said, your stuff is not community. You straight, on the professional level. So now I think we're ready to really launch and do something really big. It's scary. It's very scary. But you know what? If you're not nervous about it, you're not going to have the success that you can have. So I'm okay with it. I'm broke, but I'm okay with it.
That's the other part, Frankie, is that sometimes we feel like we have to be able to make tons of money if we're going to express our creativity. It does come, but it takes patience. And the other thing is the scary part. Let's talk about that, because I'm sure there are a lot of people who are out there, not only Black women in radio, but your fans and my fans and those who are listening, scared out of their pants to move forward on a creative idea. So how did you overcome that barrier?
I prayed about it. And I said, Lord, I'm going to put this out here. And when you really read the stories of people like Bill Gates and other very successful people, not all of them, unlike 45, that their fathers wrote them a check and got them started. But if you have a desire in your heart to do something, and to me, if you're not nervous about it, I don't think you'll be as committed. Because I can tell you, we've done, when we did For Color Girls in Detroit, my girlfriend and I, honey, were standing outside. They had it was the Lion King across the street. And we were outside saying, you want to come see our show? You want to come see our show? And it was a 100-seat theater. But I was committed. I felt that we had something that was worth it, and that we had to invest in it. So, every production we've done, it's been me and my money. I didn't have any backers or anything like that, but it was an investment in my bucket. And I believed in it, and I knew that I wanted to invest in it, and I wanted to be able to do it under the auspices of my company. So I didn't want to partner. So I invested totally in it, and we've been very successful. I've never walked from a production. Everybody has gotten paid. And I can tell you there are shows we've done where everybody got paid but me. You know what I mean? But we budgeted, we did all the things that we felt like we needed to do. And now we're on the other side of that, where we're breaking even and we can now invest back into the productions. But for what I'm doing right now, you know, really going to the next level, I decided it's time for us to run, you know, in the tall grass with the big dogs. I'm nervous about that as well, but I just believe that we've got a successful project. So I just say go for it. And if you're not nervous, I just don't think that you're going to be as committed. If you're overly confident, I think there's something wrong with that. Well, I got this, So being nervous, I think, will make you dot your I's, cross your T's, and make sure that you cover everything, every little detail. So, you know, we've been really good about that.
That reminds me of one of those slogans that I've seen out there on social media. It may have been Oprah, I don't know, but dream bigger than you have ever dreamt before. Come out of your box. And again, if it doesn't make you nervous, it's not big enough. I think that was the quote. If it doesn't make you nervous, it's not big enough. And
I love that.
You're a testament to that. Wow.
I'm working on it. You know, I knew I always wanted to take what I've been able to accomplish in the radio and do something for Frankie. You know, when my daughter got older, I was married, divorced, all that kind of thing. And I wanted to build my brand collectively in and outside of radio. I mean, I've owned a salon. I've owned a boutique, you know, so I always thought that business was something I always wanted to do, because I also believe for the especially the young sisters, because I stood on some shoulders, and I know that there's some young sisters out there standing on my shoulder. As you build your brand for whatever company you're working for, and I mean, put in 120%. But as you build your brand, make sure that your brand can go with you wherever you go, whether you're doing this or whether you're doing something else. And the way in which radio is changing, I just think, you know, first of all, I need a job like everybody else, but I want to know that I have an opportunity to do something different if I had to be able to do that. Multiple streams of income is always a wonderful thing. And no matter what happened, I wanted to always be able to, you know, take care of my daughter, take care of my family, take care of myself. And theater about 8 years ago really was the thing that I said I'm going to totally focus in on and take my hands out of some of the other buckets and just really focus on the theater piece. So it's been great. And my daughter works for me too, so she can pay back that college tuition.
I love it. I love it. Right? Put them to work. Exactly. And I understand your daughter went to Spelman, right?
She did.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And I am so yeah. And listen, let me just say, when I saw your post that you guys were going over to Spelman to do a presentation, I was like, oh, child. Because, you know, Spelman doesn't play.
No.
When it comes to bringing in some of the most accomplished women, they probably know everything about you to when you were born, because they only expose those young women to nothing but the very best. And that was money well spent, and I'm so proud of her. And when she left Spelman, she went up to University of Boston Medical School. She graduates May 14th. So they're doing some dynamic things over there at Spelman, and she's coming back your way. She's like, I'm going back to Atlanta. So she'll be back in Atlanta in a couple of months when we get through all this other stuff. So yeah, she went to Spelman.
Oh my goodness. Well, congratulations to her, because, you know, one thing that I really love about Spelman is that, just like you said, it's quality. I love it. So let's get back to how radio actually prepared you. How do you think it prepared you for what you grew into with theater?
Okay, so you want the truth, right?
I want the truth, yes.
And, you know, and I want people to, when they watch this, because if you're in the industry, you already know when somebody is telling the truth, right?
Yes,
this has not been easy. This has not been easy. I've been doing this for a long time. Started at WEAA Radio in Baltimore, Maryland. Actually, I was a a physical therapy major taking chemistry, and we had to do an anatomy, and I had to dissect a squirrel, and I was like, that's not going to work. That's how my stomach couldn't take it. And I walked into my next client, Kwesi Mfume, who is now the congressional member in Maryland, was doing a show called Two-Way Talk. And I walked by and I said, wow, that looks fun. I like to talk. And so radio started from there. So from Baltimore, I went to WRAP in AM station back in '84. In Norfolk, Virginia. From there, I went to K97.5 in Raleigh, Durham, then to WPEG in Charlotte, and then from WPEG to Detroit, WJLB, and then on to MXD. And now I'm on WMXD in Detroit, WDAS in Philadelphia, and then I do the iHeart Custom 26 other markets. I do believe that the journey has been a wonderful journey, and I wouldn't trade it for the world, but it's been a tough one as well. I feel like there was always a fight, more specifically being a woman and an African-American woman. Mm-hmm. My dad was a career Marine, my mother was a social worker, and they were tough, and I got that toughness, but I knew that I could do well. You know, the person, and I'll share this, a person fired me back in 1987. And he said, you run a great board, but you kill it when you open the mic. Now, I was out of college just a couple of years. And when someone is looking for someone to be a mentor, when you're still trying to figure out if this is what you want to do. And he called me and he fired me, literally. And I was working overnight. I'm like, who fired somebody that works overnight? Right. But I will tell you, since then, that individual has called me since radio has changed and asked me if I knew of any opportunities.
That's the way it happens, Frankie. Now you're telling the truth, sister.
You know what I'm saying? He literally called me maybe 5 years ago on the request line. Hey, this is so-and-so. I was like, hi. He was like, you know, I've been out of business for a while. Just wanted to know, you know, if you knew of any openings with the company. But I say that to say that had I listened to him, I would have walked away. Because when I got fired, I thought, well, maybe this isn't for me. I had so much respect for him that I thought, maybe he's right. Maybe I'm not the talent that I think I am. Mm-hmm. Maybe I don't have the skill to do this. And I went into retail because I have a bachelor's in communications and a minor in marketing. So I went into retail. I was working for a Levi's company. And then someone who got fired at the same time hired me to come to Raleigh, Durham. And the rest is history. So I say to people, be careful about what you say to young people because it matters, especially if you're somebody, you know, that have a couple of years behind you and you have some respect and legacy behind you. Be careful about what you say to young people about their talent. Even if you don't like it, it doesn't mean that someone else isn't looking for a talent just like them. And I tell young people that all the time, when they say, can you listen to my air check? I'll say, yeah, well, let me recommend you do this, you do this, you do that. Well, I said, somebody is looking for somebody just like you. It's up to you to get your air check and your resume on their desk. Don't take no for an answer. And if somebody tells you you're not a fit for them, it doesn't mean that you're not a fit for somebody else. You will know when your time has come to do something different. So, you know, I've lived an incredible lifestyle. I've traveled the world. I've raised my daughter and educated her because I've been in radio. So I have nothing bad at all to say about radio, but I will not sit here and tell you either at this point in my career that it has been easy. I think that my background has intimidated people on occasion. And I also believe that my background has been an asset for me. So you've got to learn how to politically navigate through this industry. And I've had to learn too, how to be humble. And I've had to learn too, how to keep my mouth shut. Yes. You know what I mean? How to be able to network properly, who I should meet. And meet people outside of the circle I'm accustomed to running in, you know what I'm saying? And be respectful. So I've had to learn my lessons about, you know, my shortcomings too, to now look back at 31 years and say, wow, I'm still doing this and I still have value for it.
That is huge, Frankie. And I applaud you for speaking the fact that you speak life into people. Be careful, no matter, especially when you're in a leadership role. It's huge. Mm-hmm. It's absolutely huge. And I'm willing to bet that's what you do with your theater company.
I do. And here's the thing. When I became a mom, I knew that there were people that helped me let me just shout out Sandy Mallory, who was on V103 radio in Baltimore. She's now on WEAA in Baltimore. Okay. And she was an adjunct professor at Morgan. And I remember I told her, I said, wow, Sandy, I'm going to be on the air tonight, 7 to midnight on the college radio station, which was an FM station heard around the city. And I was not ready. I was not ready. But I told myself I'd go in that studio and I was going to get ready. And I put the first cart into the machine and knocked it off the console. It was on the floor, just spinning around. No. I was making a mess. I looked at it on the floor. I was like, oh my God, I am making a mess. But you know what? She called me that night on the request line. And she said, Frankie, I've got my ears on. And I said, oh my God, Professor Mallory, I'm making a mess. She said, no, you're not. She said, you're learning. Yes. And then after that, when I went down to WPEG in Charlotte, and BRE, Sydney Miller, did an article on me. And I had to thank her in that article. She called Charlotte, and she said, wow, I never knew I had that impact on you. And I said, well, I just wanted to send you something that I got a little money. She said, no, don't do that. She said, what I want you to do is to pour what I poured into you. I want you to pour into other young women coming up. So I stand on Sandy Mallory's shoulders when I support another young woman in this business. She said, so you pour into another sister that's coming into this business what you feel like I poured into you. And that's the best thing you can do. And plus, you know what? I've got a daughter out there. So I want to just put into the universe something positive, so that when my daughter along her journey, that some woman somewhere, because she's in mental health, she didn't want nothing to do with entertainment, she didn't want anything to do with radio, but whatever journey you're taking, I don't care what it is, somebody has got to pour into you, and somebody should pour into you, and you should be in a position to be humble, to allow them to pour into you. So I want somebody to pour on my daughter. So I'm putting out into the universe what I want somebody to give to mine.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it gives me chills, because that is really my hope for Black women in radio, that these conversations will feed them in a way that will help propel their careers and reassure them that wherever they are in their career, they are enough. Just as they are, they're enough. So we are concentrating on building strong foundations, and women like you and so many others that I've had a wonderful opportunity to speak with. I would not have had that opportunity if we had not formed Black Women in Radio. It wouldn't have happened.
And let me say this to you. What you're doing with Black Women in Radio, I want to pour whatever that is I have into what you're doing, because the network has to stay strong. And, it's not easy. I'm sure it is not easy with all the, business that it takes to put together and organize what it is that you're doing, because all of us have a purpose. All of us have an opportunity to be able to do something great. So what you're doing with Black Women in Radio is amazing work. And anything that I can do, and let me say this, and I'm real clear about this, anything that I can do for free to support you in your initiatives, count me in. I don't like meetings and conference calls, but Frankie, I need this, I need that. Okay, I got you. I'm gonna do this and I'll send it to you. But let me applaud you, because having this opportunity to afford us this kind of network is so important. One of the things that we used to have the Jack the Rapper conference. We used to have DRE conference. Yes. We used to have the Bill. We don't have those things anymore. So when I look at Black Women in Radio, I see young sisters I never heard of. I'm like, wow. So there is a world out there outside of
other
the
than our
small
bubble.
world that I have. I'm seeing some very talented, incredible, fabulous young women that you are exposing to each other and the world. So you keep doing what you're doing as well, because it is needed and absolutely necessary.
Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. It warms my heart. It warms my heart, because I have to tell you, I did get a little pushback with forming Black Women in Radio, because it was perceived as something that wasn't necessary. But I knew from being in the industry, we so need to hear from each other. Because when we are in our perspective silos or radio stations, we feel alone. And just like you said a little while ago, you have a program director that says something negative to you. A lot of people absorb that. I was one. I remember being on the air and the program director had me so upset, Frankie, my nose was bleeding on the radio. It never bled since then or before then, but it was just that he had me so upset I could not perform to my top, ability. But had I had a network that I could tap into, even if, and that's the neat thing about Black women in radio, you don't even have to reach out to each other. We exist every day on social media. You get a different idea, you get a different inspiration from women all across the country, and it just shows as support. So I am glad to be able to do that.
Let me say this, and I love that it is Black women in radio, unapologetically.
Yes.
Because I believe that there is a greater conversation for women in radio, but I think that there is a specific conversation that Black women in radio should be having. Because people want to say, well, I don't want to leave people out. Well, okay, but we'll get another group. We'll call that something else. But to know that there is specifically a conversation, because there's specific challenges that we have as Black women in radio that we should be able to talk about and not have to be apologetic about. When I wrote Conversations for Sisters Only, people were like, oh, well, that's like you're talking, about Black women. Yeah, I am, because there's a conversation that we should be able to have and not be apologetic for that conversation. Now, we can have the greater conversation and we could talk about, because we're forced to live the lifestyles of everybody else. But there comes a time when Black women need to be able to network and talk, not be apologetic for it. And it's for our own nourishments, for our own soul. So, kudos to you for Black women in radio, because I knew it related to me being a Black woman in radio, and I can relate to that. So kudos for you for that representation.
Oh, thank you so much. You don't know, but I've got goose pimples over here.
And let me say this. And I'm gonna say this last thing. And no matter how long we've been doing this and you've been in the business, it doesn't mean I still don't have my challenges, right? It doesn't mean I still don't have my fights. You said there was some pushback and that kind of thing. And that's when you push further and you push harder. See, because the reason sometimes you'll get a pushback is because somebody's recognizing you're doing something great. That's when you push forward. When somebody's trying to push back, that's when you got to push harder.
Wow.
So just know that.
Huge.
So keep pushing. Keep pushing.
I love it. Because it's truly the only way that it'll get done. I remember hearing a quote from Wayne Dyer that says, don't allow the music to die within you. And there's one thing that you will know for sure: when God has placed something in your heart to do that only you can do, it will wrestle with you. You can go to sleep, take a nap in the middle of the day, and it'll be staring you right in the face. And that's what Black women in radio was. And I was like, what is this thing? Okay. I'll move forward. And as you take one step at a time, which I'm sure this is what you've experienced in theater, your very first play, you just do one step in front of the other and God unfolds the rest. Oh my goodness, huge. Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about sisterhood, because I know that you are part of a sorority. I was not, and there are plenty of women out there who are not associated with an organization. I recognized early on in college the need for a sisterhood and sorority. I just didn't have an opportunity to join because I was working. It's really important when you're in your craft to have that sisterhood. What do you say for those women who've not had an opportunity to experience that, and they've been kind of veered off to the side to where they are thinking that the only way they can accomplish things is to step on another sister? Or, yeah, I know, right? Let's speak to that just for a
I'm
minute.
going to make you this promise. I'm going to make you this promise. The goal is to put up, because Conversations for Sisters Only was scheduled to run March 28th. So we had to move it to September 27th. I am personally going to bring you into Philadelphia to see Conversations for Sisters Only. I want you and a guest,
I love it,
to experience Conversations for Sisters Only, and we're going to take care of, we're going to take care of you. Because in the play, I addressed that issue. And that's what was so wonderful about writing this play. To your question, so people have seen the play and said, Frankie, you really think that? I'm like, child, this theater, I was just writing it for the stage, but I wrote it, you know what I mean? And I talk about the need for sisterhood, because let's just be real clear. Most women don't like each other. Most women, the truth be told, we don't. I think I was an All-American athlete in high school and college. I played women's basketball, and I played in the 70s when it wasn't popular. So I know what it was like, especially back in the 70s and 80s. Oh, you've got to be gay. And so I had a sense of insecurity and inferiority in high school because, I didn't wear the hair and I didn't wear makeup. And when I was growing up in Brooklyn and when we moved to Virginia, I was a tomboy. So I wasn't that cute girl. And so there was a sense of inferiority of hanging out with women, but one of my very best friends, and we've been friends 40 years this year, met her in the 9th grade, we're still friends today, went on, she said, you didn't run for homecoming queen. I did, and I won, and all the unpopular people voted for me. But I will say to you that as little boys can play the little Game Boys, and they play pee-wee football and pee-wee basketball. They learn how to compete, and then they walk off the playing field and they can still be friends. As girls, which is why I promote women in sports or women in organizations, because we need to learn how to compete and not take it personal, to leave the sports field and still say, yeah, we competed, but I can still be your friend. We're not taught that. We're taught, what do you look like? What do you dress? Let me just tell you something. One of the reasons we get fabulous first is for each other. And if he happens to like it, so be it.
But we dress it on that one.
You know what I mean? We do what we do for each other. So we really, and you've got to wean out those people who are going to be a cheerleader for you, and those people who are going to be an asset or a liability, is what I'm trying to say. And I've met some dynamic women. And even for the young women watching who are thinking about networking, be careful about how you network and how you approach people. And when you approach people, what are you approaching them about? I think part of it is just establishing, relationships and the like. And I don't think it's any different from men, but I think men handle it differently. But I think for women, for as much as we say, let's burn our bras, it's only if you and I have something in common. Because if we don't, and I have no use for you, there's no reason for me to be around you. Because I can tell you, some of the greatest relationships I've had with people who have really reached down to pull me up, they were men.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same here.
And to a degree, some of them were white men. Mm-hmm. And that's a whole different conversation.
Right.
But for women, though, I was able to, and I'm not everything to everybody. Let me just say that.
None of us are. Not everything, and we have to let that go.
Right? And I do the best I can. But I do believe that being born a woman, and I love everything about being a woman and being a Black woman. And I know the challenges I've had. And I just want to make a commitment to other women that if I can get you over a hump and make it a little bit smoother, mm-hmm. I want to be able to do that. I just love my womanhood so much that how dare me not support another woman when I can, And sometimes in this business, and I'm sure other businesses, and I think my daughter's starting to experience that now, she's getting ready to get into the professional world. I said, you've got to be careful, because you've got to make sure that you navigate around some people, because they're going to be intimidated by a number of different things. So, being a member, to your question, if I can say, you know, I am a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, but I'm also, you know, a legacy member of Jack and Jill. And I've just joined organizations where other women are thought like women, where we can sit around and have critical conversations about everything from motherhood to professional, you know, networks and the like. I just enjoy, quite frankly, being a woman and in all kinds of networks of women. But when it comes down specifically to who I am and what it makes me, I love being a part of organizations that look to empower Black women, because we still have a lot of work to do.
We do. We absolutely do. And to your point, in terms of not beautiful, being a tomboy, by whose standard? And that's what we really need to understand. Beauty has nothing to do with really what's going on with you. It's going on with someone's judgment of what they think beauty is. And it puts us behind the 8 ball immediately, because the crazy thing is a lot of us don't have that kind of self-esteem to really believe that we are beautiful.
Yeah, but let me tell you what I figured out. One of the reasons, the one or two, is because I had all the good-looking men. I knew them all. I didn't realize the real. Oh, she a tomboy. That was the action that caused. That was the reaction of the action. You know, part of that was I knew all the guys. I knew all the ball players. You know, and I knew all the cute guys. And you know, when I wanted to hit on the guy, I said, "You want to go play? You know, you want to shoot around? Yeah, let's shoot around." So all the good, you know, all the good-looking guys, they were crazy about Frankie. So that was the real issue. All the good guys liked me. That's what that was about. Then I found my cuteness later.
Right. I feel like I was the same way, you know, talking to the guys. I wasn't an athlete, but for some reason, women didn't like me in high school, and I didn't understand. And it wasn't until I got older and started really working on myself with self-confidence and self-worth and all of that, that I started to own who I am and not feel like I had to be placed into someone's idea of what beautiful was. So thanks to speaking to that point, because there are a lot of us.
Isn't that a wonderful thing?
Mm-hmm. It is, to feel your own strength. Hello. And that's something that the entertainment field will take away from you if you're not strong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it will take away your self-worth if you're not strong within it. Let's talk just a moment, Frankie, because I know you're busy, and I thank you so much, because when you emailed me back and said my schedule is swamped, I was like, oh my gosh, just even responding when you have a crazy schedule, thank you. So I want to be cognizant of your time.
No problem. My pleasure. My pleasure.
Well, I want to talk about the 2 books. If you would give us a summary of the 2 and why you wrote them.
Okay, really quickly, first book I wrote with Julius Justice, and he approached me and said, hey, you know, you ever thought about writing a book? I said, yeah. So we got together. It's called Frankie, Darcell, A Story to Tell. We released that book in 1999, and it's pretty much autobiographical. It's my journey, you know, from New York to 1999, and I talk about some very painful things in that book. And in order for the book to be authentic, I had to put some of my truths in that book. And I remember having a conversation with my brother about something that happened when we were smaller, and he said, that didn't happen like that. I said, well, it didn't happen in your eyes like that. Yes. We were talking. This is my book. Now, when you write your book, you can write it the way you saw it. So that was very cathartic for me. And the day we did the book release party, I really didn't realize what I had done until I saw other people opening it, and my life was inside. And I would give that book probably a grade of a C. I give it a B-. I liked it. And so in 2004, because every day I do topics on the air of lifestyle topics, so I said, you know, let me put it in a book. And so I did that. And so it's really a tabletop conversation of just things that women talk about. And it's called Conversations for Sisters Only. Wow. And then I did, one of my girlfriends was losing her eyesight. And she said, oh, I love, you know, the books and stuff, but you know, I can't see the way I used to. And I love your interviews and stuff like that. And it's different when I hear you say it than, reading it in a book or seeing it in a book. So I released a CD called Nourishment for the Soul. And it includes like 20 of my best interviews and then some of those meditations and nourishments that I've enjoyed. So each of those, and actually I'm in the process of re-releasing Conversations for Sisters Only because of the play. And because I think I have an opportunity to do it better. When I did it in 2004, I kind of did it. So I know a lot more about business. I know a lot more, about the literary world. And so I want to do the book and do the book better. So I'm re-releasing the book probably in another month or so. So those are the two books that I wrote and the Nourishment for the Soul CD. And I'm real proud of both of them.
That's exquisite. Writing a book is a huge commitment. I wrote one called Brave Leap to Freedom, which has quite a bit of my experience in it too. So I can really resonate with your hesitation about the depth of your book, because it is an experience that I don't think people understand, and you're putting yourself on the line, especially when you're in radio or you're, in the public eye. And it's like, oh my gosh, am I to do this? But it apparently you were meant to do it because it's going to bless someone else. Did you self-publish?
I did. I did self-publish.
I did too.
And actually, I did. Yeah, I did. And, and of course, when I did both those projects, 3 of the projects, the internet is nothing than what it is now. And when I said that I was going to re-release them, it's because now we have these kinds of platforms. And so I want to do it better. So I did self-publish, and through the grace of God, someone who I know that is in the literary world said, so she came to the play and she said, let me see the book. And so I gave her the book, and she had someone to reach out to me and say, we want to get behind you and this book this time. Beautiful. So I'm working on, tighten it up a little bit. And, if what is that old cliche? If the creek don't rise and the bridge, if the bridge creek don't rise and the bridge don't, whatever, if everything is in divine order, then I'm looking to have it. Yeah, if everything is in divine order, I'm going to re-release it in a big way. So I'm excited about that.
I totally resonate with you when you look back on your book and you're like, that was more like a C. I would probably give mine a C, although, the intent and the juice is there. But I feel like I can write it better. I can tighten it up, like you said. So for those people who are thinking about writing a book, what do you tell them? What do you say to them? Do it, right?
I
go for it.
Start recording their thoughts, whatever those thoughts are, however people record today in your phone, in an old school recorder. Just get started putting your thoughts in a recorder. If you think you're going to write a fiction book, think about the concept of your fiction book and start writing some things down. And then just take it. You said something earlier, one foot in front of the other. Do your one chapter, do your second chapter, just get started. And trust me, it will come together. You gotta go back, write your first chapter, do your second chapter, go back, read your first and second chapter. And if you wanna change something, you have the right to do so, but just get started.
That's the key.
Just get started. We're all busy and got a lot of things going on. I would write, at 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning when the universe was quiet. But I would say just get started. And if you're going to do something autobiographical, I would say start speaking into a recorder, because you forget things. Speak into a recorder from the beginning, the middle, and the end. Go back and listen to it. And then you'll say, oh, I left this out. Then start putting it into words.
I love that.
And start typing it out by listening to your recorder. And then the next thing you know, you'll be next to complete. And then you make it happen.
I love
Why
that
not?
approach.
And if not, and if not now, when?
Exactly. And you just gave someone a nugget of information there when you said record it. Because a lot of people say, well, I'm not a writer. Well, that takes the equation out. You put it on a recorder and then, have a transcriber do it, and there you have it. Yeah. Okay. So I really wanted to find out from you. Woo! COVID-19. Yeah. Lord Hammer, I have to ask you your thoughts on it, and how are you handling this whole quarantine thing? I know.
Very nervous. We are here. Here's the thing. I grew up in the radio when, which is what we should all be doing, in pandemics and tragedies. I've lived through hurricanes, and I remember when we had storms in the southern part of the country, in Virginia, North Carolina. The radio stations used to bring us into the station, and we had to sleep at the station. And one of the reasons was because we wanted to make sure that we got the community information. So for me, when this pandemic hit, we don't run away from our audience, we run to our audience. Because specifically for the Black community, we need to make sure, because we should be their trusted, reliable, not just the news, but their trusted, reliable service that they come to for information. So I knew when this pandemic was going to hit, how was I going to handle it? So the company has allowed us to be able to work to a degree from home. We have systems to be able to work from home, but there's some things that I'm not able to do. So honey, let me just say, I go out of here looking like the mad scientist. I got my mask on, I've got my gloves on, I put my hat on, you know, I'm looking for one of them little plastic suits used to work out in. But I go into I go into the station and I use every bit of caution that I to be careful, because working in Detroit, I've lost 3 people that I know who have succumbed to COVID-19, 7 that I know who are in the midst of their diagnosis and illness right now, and a number of people I know in Detroit who have lost relatives and friends, and people who I've met and know, who know someone. I almost feel sad to go on Facebook right now, because every day I see somebody that I know from Michigan in particular that's getting really hit, that have lost their life. Now, on the back of that, there are some people who are starting to beat this thing and are coming out on the other side. But I believe, because I'm a woman of faith, that sometimes we just need to be quiet. And I believe that God has said, I need to shut the world down for a minute. So I try to look at things with the glass being half full instead of half empty. It's not what happens to you, it's how you deal
navigate
with it.
it.
So this is devastating. People have to take it serious. People are dying, and it has no social, economic, no matter how cute you are or what brand is on your shoes, it will take you out. So please stay at home, take it seriously. I'm having conversations with my daughter because she's a millennial.
I have 2 of those, Frankie. You know, I know. Yes, ma'am.
And I said to her, and I said to her, so she came down to Philly from Boston, and I overnighted her because early on when I heard it, people that know me know I'm a visionary. Yes. I don't look at what's happening today. I look at what could happen. I would rather be prepared for an opportunity and not have it than to have the opportunity and not be prepared. Absolutely. So I'm gonna be ready, you know, Absolutely. Right? So when I heard this was happening, I went and bought, now I ain't buy all the toilet paper, y'all. I wasn't one of them, but I bought enough that I needed what I needed. I bought sanitizing wipes, I bought some masks, and I bought some gloves. And I bought the gloves from the beauty supply store, so I didn't go to the hospital to get them. I bought them from the beauty supply store. And I bought some masks. I overnighted those to her. And so she drove down, she walks in the door, and she didn't have the mask on. She had the gloves. I said, where's the mask? I was okay. No, because I think, and now they're stuck in the house. They really can't go anywhere. She's thinking about, I'm trying to do. I'm like, girl, there's a pandemic. Because I think this millennial group believes that everything is supposed to happen as quick as
they're invincible.
Everything is they're invincible. I'm like, you know, sometimes you just do nothing.
Yes.
For a moment.
But that's difficult, not only for them, for us. We're not used to not doing anything at all. Because half of us couldn't even get a vacation on the job.
Right. I've changed this den around twice. I'm like, well, I had everything where I wanted it anyway. But I am trying to use it as an opportunity to maybe even self-reflect, because, you know, I think that this is the world needed to shut down. And if I were to speak from a scientific perspective, I'd have one conversation. Yeah. But to come from a spiritual conversation, I would say it's because God said, y'all need to stop.
That's what I heard.
Slow down. Yeah, I need to put the brakes on some of what y'all are doing, and we need to shut this down. So it's been a tough time. It's been heartbreaking. I'm just trying to stay safe. I want my family to stay safe. I want you and your family, everybody,
Thank you. Me too. Yes,
to
to
be
yours.
safe. Yeah, you know. So for this millennial group, the first time in their lives they had an opportunity to see the first African American president. And the first time in their generation to see 9/11, the first time where terrorists would take down two buildings in 3 different areas around the country, and then to see a illness like a pandemic shut down the economy and the socialization that we've been accustomed to as the world. They've experienced more tragedy in my daughter's 23 years than I know that I've seen in my lifetime.
Me too,
so,
absolutely.
There's a message in what's going on, and I just want everybody to be safe. And unfortunately, when they say that almost 200,000 people will lose their lives, we've got a long way to go before this is over.
Oh my goodness, yes, that is very true. Well, I wish your family and friends and neighbors safety as well. I am praying daily for all of us. I wanted to do a little game at the end, and it's a word association.
Okay.
Are you ready? Okay. Heels or flip-flops?
Heels.
TV or the gym?
TV.
Wine or shots?
TV. Wine.
R&B or hip-hop?
R&B to the B.
I love it. Religious or spiritual?
Spiritual.
Beach or mountains?
Beach.
Books or magazines?
Books.
Theater or radio?
Theater.
I love it. It's so funny. I played this game with Rashawn Ali just a little while ago, and I took out TV or radio because I was thinking, wow, that's an unfair question because I wouldn't be able to choose. And she gave me an answer right away. It was so funny. So I didn't let you off the hook, and you gave me an answer right away. So then.
Oh, no. Look, I thought you were gonna ask me a consistent man or a side chick. Side chick. I love my life. I love my life just the way that it is. I love my life. I love side chick. You stay on over there. Yes. But if I can, I believe that there comes a time when you have opportunities like this. They don't come all the time. Right. And I just want to leave the footprint.
Yes, please.
For this kind of conversation for people who were just amazing in my life. And I talked about Sandy Mallory and I talked about Kwame Mfume, but I have to mention people who really poured into my life in this industry. So I just want to recognize Don Early Allen, who used to work at WOWI back in the day, gave me my first FM job. He's no longer with us. I sent him so many prayers. I want to recognize Caesar Gooding, that after I got fired and he got the PD job at K97.5, he gave me the opportunity to come to K97.5 in Raleigh, Durham and work with him. I've got to shout out my man. And when I tell you, we had a rocky relationship. Michael Saunders. So Michael, when you watch this, boo, I'm talking about you. Michael called me on the phone. He called me on the request line. I was doing 7 to midnight in Raleigh, Durham. And he said, "This is Michael Saunders from PEG." I was like, "No, it's not." He said, "Yes, it is." I said, "No." I said, "Give me a phone number I can call back." And this was before cell phone, because I didn't believe him. I hung up, I called the front desk, and then they connected me to him. I was like, "Oh my God."
Wow.
He hired me. It was my first opportunity to be a music director and the midday personality. We actually fell out. We had a 10-year period, and Michael knows that. We had a 10-year period where we didn't speak, but as God would have it, he and I have reconnected. He and Barry Mayo, everybody that knows Barry Mayo, so much into me and my career working at WPEG in Charlotte. So Michael, thank you so much. Every birthday, Michael would give me red roses until he married Stephanie Mills, and I got married too. He was just there were no boundaries to what he would teach me. And I'm just so glad that on the back of both of our careers at this place, we've had an opportunity to have a coming to Jesus meeting. So Michael Stein, I appreciate you. Let me shout out Steve Hegwood, one of the baddest PDs I've ever worked with. He way over the top, he know that, but when he brought me to JLB, I met him at the Soul Train Music Awards. I had just gotten married, and I was doing topics, and we were sitting there drinking beer at some party, and he overheard my conversation. 2 weeks later, he called me and said, I want you to come to Detroit. I was like, really? He said, yeah, flew me to Detroit, and it was he gave me my wings. My soror and general manager at the time, Verda Green, who was amazing to me. And then from there was Dave Potter, who was awesome. Earl, was it Earl? I forget Earl's last name, but anyway, he's in Chicago right now. Earl, I gotta acknowledge you. And right now, I'm working with DC, Derek Corbett. I just got to recognize those people, managers who I've worked with. And James Alexander would never hire me until he came to Detroit, but he would never hire me when he was at GCI. But it's all good. So I just had to say that. And James A. and I are incredible friends right now. And I have had a great ride. And I just hope for every other young woman who is coming into this industry that you have the ride of your life that I have had. I've got incredible memories. Some artists that people pay a bunch of money to go see. They are personal friends of mine. Got to shout out my man, Kim, from Detroit, just riding to die with him. And he has just exploded and become this incredible artist. And there's some other people. Yeah. But anyway, and from a radio side, I just had to recognize some programmers because once upon a time I was on the programming side doing MD and APD and all that. And so I just wanted to say that to the individuals who really, really, really gave me some opportunity to do what I do. And, I love it. So I just want to acknowledge them in this forum.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And we want to lift them up as well. And I'm so glad you mentioned that, because when I put together Black Women in Radio, I didn't want the men to feel left out, but I knew that it was very necessary for us to have our own. Without them, a lot of us wouldn't have had jobs, just as you said. Steve Hegwood, I worked with him at Hot 97.5 in Atlanta for the morning show. So a lot of these, names, we do need to talk about them. We do need to push them forward because they've done tremendous work. And a lot of them, the reason why we even have a job or had a job, So thank you. Thank you for saying that. Absolutely.
You're welcome. And to Janet G, Steve Hegwood, at the time, Earl, what was his name? He was in Chicago, and we were in Detroit. And Steve, and anybody, you worked with Steve, so you know Steve.
Yes.
But Steve was so innovative for Detroit when radio was radio. He said, I believe that we can have two women on the air back to back. Because back in the day, they would dare not do that. So when he called me in Charlotte, he said, I want to put you on afternoons, and we've got this incredible talent in Detroit, Janet G, and we're gonna make you guys the Turntable Sisters. Tom Joyner and Doug Banks were the Turntable Brothers with Elroy in Chicago. And Steve said, I'm gonna make Turntable Sisters, what the Turntable Brothers are in Chicago. So he put me on in the afternoon, Janet was in midday. And so we literally made the Turntable Sisters. We were the first to really start paying your bills. Now everybody around the country is doing a pay your bill contest. That started with Steve Hegwood, Janet G, and I back in the day, back in the 90s. And so I got to shout Janet out too. And Chris Kelly, God rest her soul, worked in Chicago, worked a couple of places, was at GCI, and she passed away about 2 or 3 years ago. But after Janet, left, Chris Kelly came in, and just want to acknowledge Chris as well. So shout out to my Turntable Sisters.
I love it. And you're so right. Back in the day, if you had heard one, max two female voices on radio, you knew that you could not get on that platform. Then there was nothing written that said that, but we knew that wasn't going to happen. So I'm so glad.
Listen, so when I moved my daughter to Atlanta, because she's gonna need me to pay for it, so I know she gonna invite me. I am going to call you, and we are going to sit down, and we are going to sistership.
Absolutely.
Wine, listen, here you go. Wine or shots?
I love it. Well, I'll start to think about it now because I'm a fruity drink kind of girl. I have taken shots before, mostly around my family, and they just crack up. They're like, she's gone.
I can't do shots.
But I have had them before.
But
that'll be so much fun.
We will definitely get together and break bread. I'll give you advance notice to see if you're in town and available.
I am available.
And definitely. I just want to listen. I'm changing. This coronavirus has really forced me to kind of change. I didn't think shaking hands was a wonderful thing and hugging everybody was a good thing anyway.
Too.
So this is really for people. But I just need to see you, see your face, congratulate you, and wish you nothing but the best in person. So I hope that we have that opportunity.
I am looking forward to it. It is on my to-do list.
Good.
Thank you, Frankie. Thanks so much for your time. So much love to you as well. And I know you've got a crazy schedule. You're just the best to make time for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Be careful as you exit your VIP seats. It'll be waiting for you next Wednesday when we talk to Jasmine Saunders. Be sure to join us on all social media and on our website at blackwomeninradio.com.
Here we go! Like talking to radio people because they just get it. We just get it. We have our own vernacular, we have our own language, we just get it. Because my business partner at the time, I was doing like webinars on how to get into radio and all these different things and trying to figure out who I am in this space, not having a radio station to go to, still trying to get into television, doing a little bit of television, trying to figure out where I was. Always cool with everybody. And, you know, they try to pit us against each other, which I hate. I just believe that for those of us who are still breathing and living, we have to now truly live on purpose.